Today I'm drawing these 3 pictures with you. I'm not a professional landscape drawer. I drew these pictures mostly for fun, but in the process I found out some really interesting things. Before starting a drawing, we actually need a motive. I decided to go out into this little piece of heaven. This is Schmariak Lake, and it's actually 5-minute drive from my studio. I really love this place, and Lisa adores, I think, the smells, I guess. So we come here very often. Not walking for too long, we already picked our first scenery for drawing. So I'm starting this drawing with brown color. Being the first time in using watercolors, I decided to do this picture as test scenario. I'm also adding some of my own elements in the scenery because I simply love to do this, and it also helps me in testing how to work in small and detailed scenes with this technique. I'm just starting the landscape outline. As you can see, instead of drawing every little detail, I'm just trying to mimic the shape of this landscape, just to get the correct proportions and placement of elements within. Now I'm coloring the sky and water in blue. Using different pressure on color, I'm trying to do the shading. More pressure will later on result in more color hue when adding water. For the forest deep in background, I'm using 2 green colors who represent light, and 2 color, blue and brown, who are perfect natural black color for our dark parts. First I color the dark shapes, then I continue in drawing the lighter part in green. Now comes the fun part. I was amazed on rich pigments of these colors. When adding water, colors don't lose much of their hue and they blend together perfectly. Howsoever, it was really mess in this small and detailed leg bust I put on my shore. When I was drawing it, I used a razor a lot, so paper there became much thinner. As I added color and later on water, paper actually started to decay. So, my big mistake here is that I used too much of a razor and later on too much water too many times, and the entire picture just kind of smudged and teared apart. I actually drew 3 times over my picture, trying to get the perfect result, but instead everything kind of decayed, so the result was crumbled paper and smudged colors. Yes, I have been a bit sad that this really cool picture became so overworked and smudged. But not taking too much time for mourning, I went on my second picture and picked my second scenery. Here I'm starting with cast drawing of bark. I love doing bark, but I have to admit I kind of do it quite commercially. I know that real bark and drawings like this should take you at least 3 hours, or you're not doing bark. But I'm doing a shorter version and still training my eyes in search for angles and redrawing. As you can see, I'm using a lot of straight, vertical and horizontal lines. They help me to accurately redraw this cast model. This time I decided to use Caran graphwood pencils. I work all of my drawings with them and I really love them. I love the fact they don't break and the pigments, like all of Caran products, is really strong. You can get actually really black with them. This time I'm using my sketchbook on the smoother side to see what happens. Actually, some sketchbooks have 2 side paper, one for watercolor and one for pencil. In my first drawing I used the watercolor side, this time I'm using the side for pencils. Now the background scenery. For this depiction, my knowledge of perspective will get really handy. Even I thought I still have some trouble in putting right angle of this path. Like before, I'm drawing entire background with brown color. Later on, I'm adding blue and mixing it with brown color to represent dark patches, like for example tree trunks and shadows. Then I'm adding yellow, green and orange on these lighter and mid-tone parts of my scenery. When adding water, I like to work my drawing from dark to light. After the first layer dries completely, I reinforce the colors. I do this mostly on the objects that are closer to me, because those will have a sharper outline. Objects closer to viewer should offer more detail than the ones in the background who should be little less defined. I'm also reinforcing the colors in places where I wasn't very happy how colors blended together. This is my second layer, and after finishing this one, I'm stopping. I'm not doing the same mistake as on my first drawing, where I just kind of couldn't stop adding layers and everything kind of smudged. So this is the result. I have to admit, I'm really happy with it. I think I'll do more of these. So, wrapping up all of knowledge gained from the first two pictures, me and Lisa picked this for our last drawing. At first I found this scene quite challenging, but as it showed, it was real fun to do it. This time I'm using my imagination to reinforce some shapes. I'm trying to find letters and shapes inside of my drawing. For example, here I can see letter J, who depicts path of dark and light in woods. Here I found letter M, that depicts the entrance on this path, and so on. My only worry now is to place these shapes correctly. This is a great way to exercise the drawing on the right side of the brain. It helps you to find imaginary shapes and depict them in correct place. If you don't know what drawing on the right side is, I have a video on this topic, and I'm putting the link at the end of this video. For coloring now I'm using my entire palette of this Caran Supracolor. I have a pack of 18 colors. But still most often used are the brown and blue for dark and green, yellow and orange for light parts. And of course blue for the sky and for elements in the background. By now I learned also how to play with the pressure. I got to know these colors, and by putting more pressure the color will be much more vibrant and dominant. So for example, in scenery that is far away and has to be blurry, I use much less pressure than in the scenery that is nearby. To sum up, when drawing with watercolors, it's not the best idea to use a razor a lot. It changes the tooth of paper and color grip is different there. Also, the best result is done by doing max 2 layers of colors and then finishing it. I think that watercolors have tendency that you overwork the picture. And the most important part is not to be intimidated with it, but to have fun. It really is a lot of fun doing these pictures, and I would be really happy if this video inspired you to draw a landscape in your own town with this watercolor technique. Talking about fun, I decided that it might look really cool to add one side of drawing in pencil and one in watercolor. And I think, again, that this result is quite good. So this is it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching my channel. If you like it, if you learned something new, please give me a thumbs up. It means a world to me. And don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video. Bye!